Welcome back to another episode of Whatcha Readin, where Chuck Dixon, a professional comic book writer of long standing and highly regarded in the industry, I read a bunch of stuff. And people are always asking me, Chuck, what are you reading? What do you like? What's good? So welcome back to Whatcha Readin. There you go. Jordi Bernet, maybe it's Jordi Bernet? I'm not sure. Is a comic artist from Europe that I've long admired. And I recently bought a collection of his. It's three of his comic albums done with Enrique Albuli, collected into like a little larger than digest size paperback. I'm fascinated in Europe how they do something that we don't do in the United States and we should do. Is they're constantly reformatting, reusing in different formats. In Europe, you can go anywhere from a deluxe artist edition for hundreds of dollars to the standard comic album for about $14. And then you'll have these compilations and collections, a lot like Marvel's Essentials or DC's recent Showcase line, where they'll just, repro the stuff in black and white for a new audience, an audience of cheapskates. So this collects three albums, and it's typical, if you're familiar with Torpedo, you know what Albuli and Bernet are capable of. So it's basically three vile little stories, one of them being a Western. Each one of them gets nasty in its own right, extremely violent, a lot of sexual content, a lot of pretty much open misogyny, and tough guy, macho leads, because that's what these guys specialize in. I don't know if it's ironic or these are just straight up nasty little stories. Also included along with the Western, with the hero called Snake, is I assume it's like a Jim Thompson kind of story, twisted little love triangle set in the Deep South, and with lots of murder and mayhem and violence, and once again sexual content. And the digest closes out with a science fiction epic about a group of convicts on another planet. They basically carjack or hijack a alien spacecraft that lands on the prison planet and return to Earth and get their revenge on society. Again, not for the squeamish, not for the prudish, but I just love Bernet's style. He's very much a master cartoonist, and he brings a lot of energy to his work. He's like Frank Robbins or Joe Kubert in that, where there's just a lot of kinetic energy to his stuff, his characterizations, his attention to backgrounds. He's just the whole package. I had the honor of working with him. I did an 8-page, I believe it was an 8-page story for a collection of Bernet original stories for DC's Solo series. If you remember the Solo series, where they would each issue would be focused on or showcase or highlight a particular artist, and I was invited to write a story for that anthology, so I got to work with the man. Okay, just to kind of cleanse the palate, I read Menace the Menace at the Circus. Recently, in prior videos, I talked about how I went back and looked at some of these Dennis the Menace giants that would come out, 25-cent editions that would come out during the summer. Some of them are classics. This one's not. This is from the period where the wheels are starting to come off for the Dennis the Menace comics. They were always formulaic, but in the early days of the comics, they found a way to jink the formula, to play with it, to create surprises in different situations. By this time, 1967, it's getting a little flaccid. It's getting a little tired. Also, Dennis's personality changes somewhat. It changed in the newspaper feature as well, where he's like, he becomes an did I do that kind of brat instead of being intentionally mischievous. They morphed him into a character whose all of his actions happen by happenstance or accident, rather than maliciousness or envy or jealousy or things like that, or simple greed, hunger, or desire. The things that drove Dennis the Menace in his early days, driven by the 7 deadly sins. And the art is getting weak here too, which is a pity, because the artist on this one is Owen Fitzgerald, who just absolutely fantastic cartoonist. I can't remember if it's Hilary Barta or Chris Duffy that basically turned me on to this guy, mostly just by telling me what his name was. I was familiar with the work, but I didn't know who did it. I would see this guy and go, wow, that's the same guy that did this other thing, but I never knew the name. Fitzgerald was long-time artist on the Bob Hope comic at DC. He worked for all different kinds of publishers, and as you can see, just terrific cartoonist. I think the Dennis the Menace style was constraining for him, so he wasn't really able to be as inventive as he had before, and I think it kind of shows in the artwork. He's a little bored with what he's doing. Hank Ketcham's style was terrific and vibrant and everything else, but it was very idiosyncratic, as was Owen Fitzgerald's style. And I just don't think Fitzgerald was a good fit to imitate Ketcham. I think he got tired of imitating someone else, but really had no choice. Everything had to look as if it was drawn by Ketcham. And I think that in the end hurt the comic feature, because guys like Fitzgerald and others that they brought in to fill in the later years, just, I don't know, it just didn't look right. It just looked hasty and phoned in, sadly. Anyway, all good things come to an end. But I still love the original, Dennis the Menace Goes to Hawaii, Dennis the Menace Goes to Mexico. Those are absolute works of comic book genius. Okay, Ernest Borgnine, longtime favorite actor of mine, and I finally got around to reading his autobiography, and really, really, really enjoyed it. He talks about, his growing up, his life in the Navy, the reason why he became an actor. He basically became an actor because he was unemployed at 30, couldn't find a job, and his mom said, "Well, you like making a fool in front of." You like making a fool of yourself in front of people. Why don't you try acting? So he did, and got stage work, TV work, eventually movies. And Ernest Borgnine. There's no way you haven't seen Ernest Borgnine in something. And he had a really long career. I mean, 60-year or more long career. And the reason for it is not just because there was something the audience saw in him, but he's primarily a character actor. I like reading biographies of character actors. I find they're more candid. They're less self-promotional. They're willing to not be the hero in their own story. So, because they're character actors. They're a lot of times they're fly on the wall type characters. So, the reason Borgnine's career was so long was because he had a great degree of range. He could be the comedy relief character, the authority figure, an object of pity, or evil incarnate. I mean, the whole range. You could love this guy or hate him or feel sorry for him or, be scared of him. And just a terrific actor. And his story's, really interesting, tells a lot of great stories. He talks about how he got into television, which is the first time I really noticed Ernest Borgnine. When I was a kid, I watched McHale's Navy, never missed an episode, loved this show. And he tells the reason why he decided to do this show. It was first offered to him by his agent. And he turned it down because he said, well, the commitment of a TV series, it's going to take me away from my movie roles. And at this point, he was getting regular movie roles and getting well paid to be in them. He wasn't the lead, but he was getting good money because audiences recognized him and they liked him. And they, producers and studios were constantly trying to get him under contract. So, so he decided, I don't want to do a TV show. It'll take me away, too much of a commitment, blah, 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 blah. So later that day, a kid shows up on his doorstep selling chocolate bars for his school. And the kid looks at Borgnine and says, you look familiar. Are you famous? And Borgnine decides to have some fun with him. And he goes, yeah, I'm Jim Arness. And the kid goes, nah, he's on Gunsmoke. And so Ernie says, yeah, you're right, kid. I'm just fooling with you. I'm Richard Boone. And the kid goes, nah, he's on Have Gun Will Travel. And then Ernie says, well, okay, yeah, you're right. I'm Ernest Borgnine. And the kid's like, I never heard of you. So Borgnine gets on the phone, calls his agent, and he goes, that TV show, that comedy about the Navy? Yeah, I'll take that. I changed my mind. And his agent says, well, what changed your mind? And Ernie says, Richard Boone. So that's how he ended up in TV and, in our homes and my first exposure to him. And, it was hard not to fall in love with the guy. And then, as I was older, he plays Dutch in The Wild Bunch. I mean, this is what this guy could do. He refused to be typecast. He's the affable, funny, short-tempered McHale in the broadest TV farce you can imagine. And he goes, when that's over, he goes right back into these heavy dramatic roles, and you never think about McHale. I mean, he invests these roles to a point where you just believe he's that guy. And of course, Wild Bunch, one of my favorite movies. So just another reason, another brick in the wall of why I've always liked this guy so much. And it's odd, as you get older, the celebrities and the people, in entertainment that you knew when you were younger, they begin passing away. And it's kind of a regular thing, and it's sad. But it's really weird. When Borgnine's death was announced, I think he was like 92 or 93, it really affected me. I was really, actually deeply sad about it. And I think it's because of that early connection from my childhood. And he was a guy he's one of those guys, when you want to see a movie and you look down the cast, do I want to see this? Do I want to not see this? If I looked down the cast and I saw his name, it was like, yeah, I want to see this. Even if it's a stinker, I want to see it because he's going to be good in it. He's going to be memorable. So, it's a fun autobiography, and he may have dictated it, but it is very much written himself. It's not ghostwritten. I mean, you can hear his voice when he's talking. And it's written in a very conversational style, but some fascinating behind-the-scenes stuff about what went on in Hollywood, and he's brutally candid about who he liked and who he didn't like, although he liked most people, and most people liked him. Why not? He's Quintin McHale. Hey, if you got some time, head on over to Archaven Comics or Amazon and pick up my latest my first of 3 planned Conan novels. The Siege of the Black Citadel. It's getting good reviews. Selling pretty briskly. Keeps selling out. Having to go back to print over at Archaven. And the follow-up novels are written. I just finished writing the 3rd one. So book 2 and book 3 will be coming out in short order. And I hope you enjoy them. I certainly enjoyed writing them. So until next time on What You Readin', I'll see you down the road.